Hi, I'm Chuck.
And Deb.
And welcome to Biker Life Radio. We're so truly grateful and thankful that you've joined us today. We've got a fantastic show lined up just for you.
Biker Life Radio is for those who ride and those who inspire to ride. We are here to reveal the truth behind the motorcycle mystique and bring real-life stories of the biker lifestyle.
All right, fantastic. Deb, let's share about one of our sponsors.
Today's show sponsor is Tony and Guy Hairdressing Academy out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. So if you are ready to put your seats in the saddle, foot on the foot pegs, chins in the wind, knees in the breeze, seats in the saddle, and get rolling, then hang on because here we go.
You guys are in for a fantastic show today. We've got a fantastic individual that you're going to love to watch and hear from. So be sure to stay tuned. We're going to go right there in just a moment, okay?
All right, so hang on because we do need to talk about this one event. We have had an event that's been on and off for a while, but they are on. And so we wanted to make sure and mention that the micro-apocalyptic madness, that's a mouthful, actually will be hosted on June 26th in Hudson, Florida at the Wing and It. So that's a little bit of an odd thing, but tickets are event on Eventbrite. It is a motorcycle event. It's a charity event. It's all family oriented. So please get out there and find the micro-apocalyptic madness event on June 26th if you're looking for something in the Hudson, Florida area to attend.
All right. And so right now, what we're going to do is we're going to get started with David. So let's go ahead and bring David on.
Here you go. We are packing the bikes and ready for an exciting trip today as we connect with a wonderful guest on today's show. We met David last October after Chuck was reading an article in a magazine called Motoclectic, and he was intrigued by the bright idea described and reached out. So David is the president and the inventor of Third Eye Design and the inview, which is a wireless helmet-mounted brake and signal light. As a motorcycle coach, safety is always top of mind for me. And although that is what brought us together, there is so much more that we are so excited to share with everyone today. So, David, we want to welcome you to the show.
Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you so much. It's truly a pleasure to be here, and it's great talking. So,
absolutely, it sure is. We've been looking forward to this for quite some time, so we're really glad that we're able to make it happen. And we really appreciate staying in touch with you over this period of time, too. It's been a great thing, forming a great friendship. And it's interesting how things happen at a distance, how we can come together. And what we have in common is one thing. Biking, motorcycling.
Yeah.
So that's really a cool thing. And that's what brings us together, among other things as well. But that's a good start. So what do we got here? Where do you want to start, Deb?
Well, let's get the ignition started. And by finding out, David, where are you joining us from today?
Oh, I'm in a town called Pittsford in upstate New York.
Okay.
All right. Now, have you lived there all your life, David?
I have in the Rochester area. Yeah, just Pittsford's a little suburb just outside of Rochester, New York. But yeah, sure have.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
And last time we talked, you had mentioned something that intrigued and sparked huge interest in us, and we've been talking about it ever since. So what do you ride and how do you ride?
So I've been riding for a long time, but I currently ride and have been riding a BMW R1200 GS Adventure.
Okay.
And it was a bucket list motorcycle for me. In 2013, they made it water cooled. In 2014, they introduced the adventure model in the water cooled option, and that's when I pulled the trigger. So it's an amazing bike. I mean, tons of miles on it, tons of miles in a day. It's comfortable. I do a lot of 2-up riding, and we tend to go to the road less traveled. So we love to head out and find places to explore and dirt roads. And as I was saying earlier, we did the Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico trip. Had the good fortune of doing some off-road in Moab. Beautiful. 2 years ago, we did Vermont, a lot of dirt roads and covered bridges. And it's just a blast. You get to see a part of the country that a lot of people don't get to see, either because of the vehicle or the difficulty in the terrain. And it's really something special.
Now, had you ridden before?
I have. I kind of grew up riding motocross. Okay. So I rode off-road for a lot of years. And then I was in college. I was selling my motorcycle for some college money. And somebody stole it. Oh. And yeah. And I thought, you know what? I've never been hurt on it. and maybe it was a sign. So I gave up motorcycling for a bunch of years, and then maybe a decade or so got back into it. Started out with a smaller BMW GS, and then in 2014 bought the R1200 GS Adventure that I'm riding now.
Okay. So the direction was always going toward the adventure bikes. That's so because you were doing the moto, that's what you sort of went in that direction.
Yeah, I did. And, I love exploring, and those style bikes make it pretty easy, and I guess I have more choices. And the R1200 is such a great touring bike. When my wife and I when we did the big Western trip, we had a couple of 10, 11-hour days in the saddle. Okay. And, we're tired at the end of the day, but, we both look at each other and say, it's pretty amazing how good we feel considering the time that we've spent, riding. And so the bike has just been amazing. I love it.
I've got a friend, Mikey, and he's actually also done some of that adventure riding, and he's on a bike. And actually, he's recently come to a crossroads of where he couldn't decide if he wanted to go to the adventure bike. And I forgot the one. Oh, I just can't remember the one he wanted to get. The African, what's it called? The African
Twin.
African Twin. And
great new bike by Honda. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You bet.
And so he was going to do that, or possibly go back to another Harley. I think he's made up his mind, but we'll have to see what the end result is. But for him, he just wanted to be able to ride with somebody. And the only reason I bring that up is he's been sending me videos on the adventure bikes. And he sent one video the other day of somebody doing the Continental Divide, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was like from Canada down to Mexico. Yeah. And I sent it to Deb, and it was just interesting to watch this whole trip. And I'm like, I could get into that.
When you get a chance, jump out to the web and look up BDR. And it's backcountry discovery routes. So BDR is an organization that has mapped out off-road trails and adventure trails across the U.S. And they have a BDR in every region. So there's a Colorado, there's a Northeast, which is just recently done. There's a BDR everywhere you want to ride. They're long. You can jump on parts of them. They're well-explored trails, so you can talk to people who've done them. You can see the maps, and they're great ways to discover parts of the country that you might not otherwise see. But BDR, tons of fun.
That is so cool. That is so neat. It does. Ever since we talked to you last time, and Deb's actually been just as fired up as I am about it. And she keeps talking to me. We got to go test ride. We got to go test ride one. We'll test ride.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
And she saw the video too, and she was like, they were up there on some mountains, and they're riding pretty good with the little cliff right there. So. But it's
it's easier. It's really a lot easier than you think. Okay. And I do most of it up with my wife because it's such an amazing experience to share. Mm-hmm. Just a quick funny story. We did one of the first things we did in Colorado was Shelf Road. So, and there's a lot of places that have a Shelf Road, but Shelf Road is a very narrow track. It's on a knife edge in between two towns. So it's 1,500 feet up, something like that. And they don't allow cars on it. It's too narrow. Maybe it's about 3 feet wide, paved most of the way, but they allow motorcycles on it. And my wife was the picture taker for this trip.
Okay. Yes, sure.
So the first thing we do is we get there. We're in Colorado Springs. We take off pretty easy, standard road kind of stuff. Then we hit Shelf Road. And we're talking on our Sennas. And Sandra, this is going to be great photo opportunity. And she was clutched onto me, she barely peeked out because it's crazy. You got this little 3 foot wide thing and then just, a big drop.
Drops.
So that's how it started. And we finished with it. And, she said it was beautiful. I hope I got some pictures, but I really can't tell. I pushed the trigger button, but, and by the end of the trip, she's hanging off the bike like this. And she's, she just got really accustomed to it. The bike is really stable. And
That's too cool.
Yeah, tons of fun.
So now as a rider coach, I know I talk about dual sports. Is there a difference between dual sport and the adventure biking?
There is.
Doing? Okay. Tell us a little bit about that.
So a dual sport bike would be a bike that's more geared for off-road, like maybe a KLR. KLR's been around for a long time. Africa Twin is probably an adventure style, although the Africa Twin, the KTM, depending upon the model, is more off-road based.
Okay.
The BMW GS Adventure. So these are bikes that have big panniers, more storage, probably better equipped for longer distance, but err on the side of road travel as opposed to off-road.
Okay.
But they're all Swiss Army knives of motorcycles because they're all highly capable.
Right.
Adventure bikes tend to have more fairing, wind protection, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Whereas dual sport bikes, not so concerned about that. They're probably more concerned with lighter weight, maybe more suspension travel, knobby tires.
Interesting. Good stuff.
Most of my stuff is road.
I had no idea. So that's always been an intrigue. And again, as soon as we talked about it, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out this adventure biking thing because it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it really, it's if you like to explore, it's a ton of fun. Yeah,
and
no doubt.
I think we would enjoy it because the exploring part would be really good, and we've got the road, and because you can do the road and the off road, and that just makes it so much more interesting and a little bit more fun. And obviously the name has it, adventurous.
And with a lot of the stuff that we do, we'll go out and we'll take the road to get someplace, and then we'll find seasonal use road. Seasonal use, or a road that's just maybe it's dirt, it's grooved, it's not in great shape, and where does this go? And it's amazing because you'll head down a road like that, and then you'll see a 6,000 square foot log cabin that's just unbelievable, sitting on a terrace on the top of a mountain, and it's just. So you see some really cool stuff,
neat stuff.
And it's
Oh, really rustic and that kind of thing.
So are there any specific adventure riding classes or, how would one get started? How did you get started?
Absolutely. Well, I had off-road experience growing up doing motocross. But there's a bunch of companies that specifically teach adventure riding, BMW. So if you get a BMW offers several classes and places to go to learn how to adventure ride. There's I think there's a school out in California. The name is now escaping me. If I think of it, I'll mention it. But if you were to do a search for adventure riding, you'd find a bunch.
Okay.
And a lot of them are great. And they're going to start with really simple stuff, but anything you learn from an adventure riding perspective, it's going to help you on the street.
Okay.
It teaches you balance. It teaches you slow skills. Slow skills are something that's important to learn and practice. But yeah, certainly adventure riding, dual sport. Yeah,
Very
lots
good.
of schools. Yeah.
That's interesting because we'd have never thought that there was a school. So
yeah,
glad you asked the question, Deb.
Maybe we'll be going to school on our trip.
Yeah. And a lot of the some of the adventure places actually do BDR, backcountry discovery route. So, you go to the school, they happen to be located fairly close to one of these places. They rent you a bike, which is nice. And then they'll give you a day or two of training. And once they see you've kind of mastered some of these slow skills, some of the terrain that you might be doing, then you head off on the backcountry discovery route. And that's really cool. A lot of it involves camping. You'll pitch a tent and spend a night. Sometimes there's hotels and towns along the way, and you'll just stop there if that's your preference. But really cool places to explore.
That just sounds so much fun.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to be checking it out in the future. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But while we're there and while we're talking about this, is there a particular, and it might be a little bit of a question, out of all the rides that you do, is there one particular ride that stands out above all the rest that you'd like to share with us?
They're so different, So Third Eye Design exhibits at Americade every year. Okay. And Americade is up in Lake George, up in the Adirondack region in New York State. And one of my employees and I fight over who's going to drive the truck and pull the trailer and who's going to ride the bike. And the interesting thing is he usually wins driving the truck when it's raining. I'm not sure how that happens, but the riding up there is gorgeous. So up in the Lake George area, heavily wooded, lots of curvy roads, really interesting scenery, and it's mountainous, so that's a ton of fun. So Lake George is something that we do at least annually, and that's a great ride. Vermont is a fun place to ride.
Okay.
It's rural. It can be rustic. There's some great cities, but then covered bridges and history. I always like that.
Sure,
and then, of course, out west. And, when we did the Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, every state is different. And Sandra and I we were in Bryce Canyon, and we had a 10-hour day on the bike to get to Bryce Canyon from, I think we were we went to Bryce from the Grand Canyon. In any case, we woke up early in the morning, and the next stop was Moab. And I've been to Moab before. It's gorgeous. Riding is gorgeous. The scenery and the rocks and the arches are just really otherworldly,
Right.
And so we had two choices. We could get there on the road, and it was a fairly short trip, or you could get there on the back roads, and that was a long trip. And Sandra and I looked at each other and said, well, that was a long day that we just had on the bike. Let's take the short route. And that's okay, because even the short route is still going to be beautiful. You're going to see mountains. You're just going to be on pavement. So we headed in the kind of in the opposite direction to jump on a thruway that was going to loop us around. And we got about 30 miles away, and a lot of other folks were taking the short route, and they went north. We went south, and we ended up in a town about 30 miles away to have breakfast. It's about 7:30 in the morning. And a guy pulls in to get breakfast on this monster ATV 4-wheel thing. It was just really cool, jacked up, and he walks in, and you could tell he was a local. He went, "Hey, Mavis, is my breakfast ready?" She goes, "Yep, it's right here." And I just stopped him because I was sitting near that kind of encounter, and I said, "That's a really cool device, but I noticed you don't have a license plate on it." And he said, "Oh, you're in Panguitch. You don't have to have a license plate here to ride on the road. We're the epicenter of 2,000 square miles of off-road riding. So as long as you're riding to a destination, you can't just zip through town. But if you're riding to a destination in town, we have so many off-road vehicles here, you don't need a license." And I said, "Wow." He said, "Where are you from?" We said, "New York." "Where are you going?" We said, "Moab." He said, "Are you taking routes 12 and 24? And I said, "No." I said, "We were going to, but we had a big day yesterday, and that was a long ride." And he goes, you got to take those routes." And I said, "Why?" He said, "I've driven on every road in this country." And he said, "We are so fortunate to have two of the most beautiful roads right here." And he said, you got to ride them. He said, "Come down to my shop." So he owned this off-road rental place. So we finish up breakfast. We go down to a shop. He shows us the route. Sandra and I looked at each other, and we said, this is why we're here. We turned around, went back to where we started, and then took the long way back. And that's probably the best ride I've ever had. Our jaws were tired because they were just so open the entire. You take a turn, and you're just, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when when we had our boys, when we had our kids, I remember looking at my wife, and I'm saying, they're an infant. How does it get any better than this? And then they start crawling, and then they start toddling, and they hug you, and then they start talking. And I to this day, my older guy is number one in his class in dental school. My younger guy just graduated with a degree in environmental engineering, did very well. And I still think, how does it get any better? Well, that's what this road trip was like. You take a turn, and and the scenery is so dramatic, and it changes so fast. If somebody hasn't ridden out west, I encourage you to do it.
Yes. Oh, yeah, great beautiful story. Oh, and it was like, it was meant to be. Yeah. That you ran into this guy and all this happened. Oh, and had it not been, oh my goodness.
It was all destiny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you going to say something different? Yeah.
No, just it was it was a really good fortune meeting him, and so happy we turned around and took the long route. And it was a big day, but you didn't feel like it was a big day until it ended.
Yes. Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, you felt it, but at the whole time, you're just immersed in it. And what an incredible story. I love that because, it just happened. You were there, and it led you on to another adventure. And that's really, really just a great story. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think that's what keeps us riding, but there's also the other side of rides. Oh, yeah. And of course we couldn't talk about the good without somehow getting to a ride that just didn't go quite as you planned. So do you have any of those that kind of stick out that are still stories you talk about shared today?
That you can laugh at today right. That you didn't laugh at the time?
I do. I have two. One of them was on the way to Lake George, and my wife and I are both amateur photographers, so we're always looking for a photo op. We don't go anywhere without our cameras, right? And we're driving these beautiful roads up in Lake George. It's 75 degrees. It's beautifully sunny. The roads are in great condition, and we're pretty relaxed at this point. So we've been riding for a couple hours on these roads, and I look to my left. And I see this cobblestone house that had a fire. It's all burned out, but it was beautiful. You know what I mean? Kind of sitting up there, abandoned. And the roads we were on up there are 55-mile-an-hour roads. Okay. But then, you get the warning, caution, 35-mile-an-hour turn. Warning, caution, 30-mile-an-hour turn. So you really got to pay attention. Mm-hmm. And when they say 30 miles an hour, they mean it. Okay. So we've been pretty used to doing this. The pace was good. And one of my very good friends, an employee, was riding ahead of us. So we were following him. And so I'm talking to Sandra on the headset, and I just looked up, and I'm just amazed at this cobblestone. And I'm thinking, how do I let Robert, my employee, know that we're going to stop for a second? Because I really want to take a couple of pictures of it. And all of a sudden, Sandra says, watch out. And I turn back and I realize I'm in the apex of a 30-mile-an-hour turn doing 60 miles an hour.
Oh, my goodness.
I was pretty sure the bike wouldn't have handled the turn. So thankfully, it was an area where there was no guardrail, and there was a big dip and trees, heavily wooded, but this little narrow grove of trees opened up into a field. Mm-hmm. And I just said, Sandra, hang on. And we shot off the road. We went down this dip, came into this field. I'm hitting the brakes as hard as I can. It's dirt, it's grass, it's wildflowers. And I feel the anti-lock brakes coming on, and I'm heading towards a woods that I can't get through. It's too heavily wooded. I'm just not going to make it. And I stopped, I kid you not, 15 feet in front of the woods, didn't even put my feet down, turned around and drove back out. And poor Robert is sitting, 50 yards down the road. He's off the road. He stopped his bike, and I talked to him later, and he said, I was getting ready to dial 911 because he said he saw us shoot off the road in his rear view mirror. And he said, okay, that's it.
Yeah, we're done.
Wow. So that was a crazy not paying attention thing, right? Yeah. So right. As motorcyclists, it's, it's really critical to really, really stay focused, pay attention to what you're doing. Yeah. So that hasn't happened since. But that was a learning experience. The other one was a case where now, I've got a lot of lights on my bike. I ride with inview, and I have a 139 decibel horn. Okay. I have two 2700 watt driving lights on the bike that strobe when the horn comes on, so I'm visible and you can hear me, right? So I was riding in an area on the road that I'd been to a bunch of times before, and there was a school. And the school had a driveway that went down a relatively steep hill down to the school that was sitting off to the side. And I'm approaching it, and I see a guy in a station wagon ready to pull out in front of me. And but I was probably doing 40 at the time. And he started to pull out, and I horned him. So the lights flash, and the horn, of course, is super, super loud. And he stops. And I figured, well, we're fine. He saw me. And he waited. And when we were just about to pass him, he pulls out. He pulled out right in front of us. And I know he saw us. Don't know why he did it. I mean, I'd have clobbered him. Thankfully, pure luck, there were houses to the right. Okay. So some poor guy was out. He was out raking his lawn, and he had this big pile of brush and leaves in the front of his lawn. And I just shot through it. And he's looking at me like, So here's this big motorcycle with two people on it that shoots through this little brush pile he's got. We shot across his lawn, turned around, came back out his driveway, and but that was a failure to be seen, or failure to be recognized, or something situation, and that was a bad one.
I don't know. I don't know how you fix that one. I mean, it sounds like you did everything you possibly could. I don't know.
You prepared to react the way he did.
Yeah, right. That was a great reaction, no doubt.
You simply prepare for that reaction.
Oh, I've got one more, if I may. Okay. We were testing inview. So, of course, inview's been, it's been out. We founded the company in 2009. Spent a ton of time doing focus group study work, whatever. Did pilots, user group studies, and we were out testing. Now, it was a really hot summer day. And I'm an ATGAT guy, right? So I don't ride without being fully geared. And so at this point, I'm putting the jacket on and the helmet and the gloves and going for a ride and coming home, taking it off, doing a little bit of work, fine tuning, putting it all back on. And it's just becoming a pain in the neck. So I had one more test I needed to perform. I have a short sleeve shirt on like this. And I decided, you know what? I don't have to go very far. I'm not going to bother with my jacket. Of course, I got boots and gloves and a helmet. And so I take off. And I was testing. I can't remember what I was doing. I didn't have inview on my helmet. So when I went out, I left inview behind. So I go out of my development. I go up to the corner, and I'm at a fairly busy four-way intersection, and it's probably I think it's 2 lanes in one direction, 4 lanes in the other direction on the main road. I'm on the main road, and I'm coming up behind a lawn and landscape guy with a trailer and a tractor on it, that kind of stuff, and his lights were out. So he's taking a right on the smaller road, and our light is green. And as he turns right, somebody stepped out to cross in front of him. They stepped out of a woods. There's no crosswalk. They just stepped out. So this guy panic stops. I'm right behind him on my motorcycle. I panic stop, heart's beating, and I stopped literally with my front tire practically touching his trailer. I have no place to go. And all I hear in the background is a screech of tires. And I look in my rearview mirror and I see a Nissan out of control, skidding like this. And thankfully, the driver had the presence of mind to go on the other side of the truck, and he was a little bit in front of me by the time he stopped. So now this guy wasn't that close to us. He didn't have to do a panic stop, but he didn't realize we were stopped or stopping.
Yeah.
And that's a really dangerous situation. I speak all over the place on inview, and I'll tell you, at almost every place I go to speak, someone comes up to me afterwards and said I was rear-ended at a light.
Yes.
One guy from Motorcycle Consumer News was rear-ended twice, 2 different motorcycles.
Jeez.
And that's a scary situation.
It is.
So never again without all the gear, never again without inview.
There you go. Absolutely.
Hard lessons learned.
And what a story. Yeah. I mean, the stories are amazing. I thought, maybe we'll hear about a flat tire out in the middle of nowhere running out of gas. But those were phenomenal, David.
Yeah, they're enough,
Yeah, they're enough. Yeah. And the one going over the cliff and about going into the woods. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But if you ride enough, you're going to have those stories, and hopefully you prepare as much in advance for them as you can. You prepare by wearing the right gear, doing the right thing, being as visible as possible, and then when the event occurs, you deal with it the best possible way you can, and hopefully you come out okay.
Absolutely.
And training.
Fantastic stories.
Great stories.
And, it's probably a good segue into starting to talk a little bit about the inview and about Third Eye. But before we do, is there anything else that you'd like, maybe our audience to know about you personally?
I don't know.
Touch on. I mean, I learned today that you have 2 boys, so that was new for us. So you got a family, you got a wife, Sandra.
Yep.
He loves riding with you, so that's pretty cool.
Really exciting. Yeah, we ride together. Scuba dive. I'm a big scuba diver.
Right
okay.
So I think one of my other passions is scuba diving. My wife scuba dives, so we try to do that whenever we can.
All-around adventure person.
Yeah.
Seeker.
Yeah.
The stuff that you don't want to put on your life insurance application.
So true. Boy.
We might have to cut that out of here, David, in case, you know.
Don't have them listen if they ride.
Yeah.
So it's time to hit the trail, and we want to focus on how you've made your passion into becoming a better and safer place, one motorcycle at a time. So
sure,
if you will, please share with us.
Yeah, you bet.
How, Third Eye has come about.
Yeah. And actually, before I know you're ready to jump into it, but I got a curious question myself. Sure. You've got Third Eye Design. And I know this is sort of weird, but I like knowing little things like this.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the name Third Eye Design? Just out of curiosity.
We didn't know what to call the company, right? Okay. We didn't know what. So there's the third eye, and in some cultures it's mystical. It's all seeing, right?
Yes.
So it's a symbol of safety and being visible. And I just thought it kind of worked with what we were doing. Mm-hmm. And socialized it with some people. They thought it was kind of cool, and it stuck.
I love it.
There you go.
I had to ask about it.
Names are tough, though. I mean, names
can be.
They are.
Names are really, really tough.
Yeah.
But so Third Eye, that's it. Back of the napkin kind of a thing. Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that with me. I appreciate it, because we're like that. I mean, sometimes we spend so much time on the littlest things that blow your mind.
That people would go, it's no big deal. And we go, but it is a big deal.
But it is a big deal. Yeah, you're right.
You're it's worth, trying to figure it out. And I love the name. So thanks for sharing that.
So now that we know how it came about, you need to make sure and share with us what Third Eye Design is all about, and this fantastic product called the inview, because you've touched on that just briefly. Yeah,
thank you. This is a decade ago, more than a decade ago. I was on my way home from work. It was Friday, end of a long week, in the middle of the summertime. I was approaching a light I'd stopped at 1,000 times before, very familiar with the area. I'm getting ready to stop behind a van. So I see this van in front of me. And it wasn't until the very last minute I realized there was a motorcycle between me and the van. And the only reason I saw the motorcycle, because the color of his jacket and his helmet blended directly into the color of the van, is because at the last minute he moved his head, which had been blocking the third brake light on the van. As soon as he did that, panic stop, nobody gets hurt. Why doesn't he have a brake light on the back of his motorcycle helmet? The real answer is because the technology didn't exist. Right. So I was a program project manager by background, and did what a program project manager would do, and started to do a bunch of research, started focus group work. Had the really good fortune of meeting a guy by the name of Bill Dutcher. Bill Dutcher is the founder of Americade, very old, one of the largest and oldest rallies in New York State.
Okay.
And he said, come up, I'd love to talk to you. We're all about family and safety. And so I did. He loved the idea, and he said, how can I help? And I think one of the first things I said, well, would you sit on my board of directors? And he said, I can't. He said, I have a whole bunch of vendors that come up to Americade every year. They want me to sit on their board, and I can't tell everybody yes. I said, okay. And he said, but I'll tell me what else I can do. I said, well, we need to talk to people. So he had a huge audience. So he really facilitated our ability to talk to people. So we spent a couple thousand hours over a multi-year period asking people, what do they want? Mm-hmm. And if you're in the project management world, customers would often tell you, I want good, fast, and cheap. And a project manager would say, pick two. You can't have all three.
Right.
Well, our customers really told us that they wanted good, fast, and cheap. They wanted an ultra bright light that didn't have a switch because they won't remember to turn it on or turn it off. They wanted to have an automatic pairing capability because they have multiple motorcycles. They want to be able to switch motorcycles without having to buy multiple units or pair it every time. Mm-hmm. They wanted long battery life. Mm-hmm. And that list started to sound impossible. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how impossible it was going to be at the time. And I had the good fortune of meeting a brilliant engineer who specialized in low frequency RF communication. And we started building. And 5 years later of R&D and patent work, we came up with inview. And it really, 2 AAA batteries last a month or two. You never have to remember to turn it on or off. There's automatic diagnostics, so you're going to feel it vibrate and chirp when you first use it. That says it's working. If the two of you are riding together, it goes on the back helmet, easily moves from helmet to helmet. And so we had all these requirements that people told us they wanted. And after 5 years, we did it.
That's fantastic.
So very exciting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how when you're out there and you put yourself out, people and things come into play. And it seems like that's happened, with you. It's like sometimes they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So, yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you took a step out there and you met this gentleman, and then just one thing sort of led to another, and here you are, and it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. And I try to give back, because I've had so many people who have stepped out to help, and it's really I feel blessed, and it's been a wonderful experience. Bill Dutcher and all the folks at Americade have been amazing, but I've got the professionals that work with me at Third Eye Design. My attorney is an amazing guy. He's been with me for more than a decade, and he's never charged me a dime. He's never charged me a dime.
Are you sure he's an attorney?
Yeah, he is an attorney. I've got two of them. I've got an attorney and a patent agent who just believe in what I'm doing. I've given them a small piece of the company as a way of saying thank you. They didn't ask for it or require it, and it's that kind of stuff. People who really believe in it, and it's wonderful. It's really amazing. So my objective is to really turn the company into something to reward folks like that. To make them feel like they're part of something really special.
And David, I am absolutely loving your story. I'm sitting here. I got chills going down my arms here. I got actually chills going down on my legs. I'm wearing shorts, and I'm not kidding. I'm sitting here, and it's just there's just something about it for me of how you've taken it, how it's happened for you, and have you taken it and you're giving it back, and you're blessed. I mean, it's like I can't even describe. It's just really neat.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Those are oftentimes the stories we just don't hear enough of in this world.
I think we need to hear more of that, actually.
I agree.
And you want to hear another cool one?
Absolutely. Because coming from you, it's got to be.
This is a cool one. So we have a contract manufacturer that builds our product located here in Rochester, just outside of Rochester, and they're wonderful. Love them, Sermotech. And so they've been a big part of the company and what we do. They're a contract shop, but they do excellent work, and it's really appreciated what they've done. We were getting to the point where we felt we want to be prepared just in case we need to meet volumes. So they're a mid-sized contract manufacturer, and we said, well, people, and I'm completely dedicated to them. But people have been approaching us. We can do your contract manufacturing. We can do your contract manufacturing. And I would say, thank you. We're all set. And then finally we decided, well, maybe we should talk to somebody in terms of a backup. Fine. So I got an introduction to a woman who was in Buffalo, about an hour away. And the person who introduced us said, you should take a trip up and talk to her. She's a wonderful lady. And so we did. And she is a wonderful lady. And it's a company called Sopark in Buffalo. And she gave us a tour of her contract manufacturing company. Very nice, very clean, very nice operation. And when the tour was over, we sat in her conference room. I had my team with me. She had her executive team with her. And I expected to get a pitch. Here's why we're great, and here's what we can do for you. And she knew I was dedicated to Sermotech, but we were talking about backup capability and maybe if someday, whatever. Sure. And she didn't do a pitch at all.
Okay.
She was Malaysian. She grew up in Malaysia. She's been in the States a long time. She's been part of the Sopark company for decades. And she simply said, you need to be in Southeast Asia. And my answer was, I know. But right now, we're really focused on the U.S. market. It's what my investors are really concerned about. It's a market we understand, and that's challenging enough, getting the word out. We know we'll be in Southeast Asia. We know we're a global company, but I don't want to be too diluted. She goes, well, I travel there frequently, and I'm going there in a few weeks. Would you mind if I brought some information? I said, sure. So I provide her with some information. She's a very well-connected lady, sits on a couple of global manufacturing boards, heads over to Malaysia. While she's there, she meets with MIROS. MIROS is the Malaysian Institute for Road Safety. It's a governing body that reports to the Malaysian Department of Transportation that helps set road rules, guidelines, dictates, that kind of stuff. And MIROS loved it. In Malaysia has 27 million registered motorcyclists. Indonesia, right next door, has 133 million registered motorcyclists. I mean, they take, we're very concerned about motorcycle safety in the U.S. It's at a whole nother level in Southeast Asia. And that's because of the trickle effect of the economics of injury. There are so many people who ride. If someone gets hurt riding, it certainly impacts them. It can impact their family, certainly. It can impact the village they're from. It can impact the company that they work for. So road safety is really important. Helmet laws are universal throughout Southeast Asia, and they're trying to do things to change traffic patterns and dedicated roadways. So they heard about inview, and they loved it. So Miro said, would you mind coming back in the fall? We have a once a year road safety symposium. We have 3 guest speakers in a innovative product safety segment. And we'd love it if you could attend. Honda Motor Corporation and Continental Tire have currently accepted our invitation, and we have a space for 3. So we said yes. So we headed back in the fall of last year. The presentation was so well received. We had a private audience with the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, a private audience with the Minister of Transportation, and a private audience with the Chief of Police, which is a centralized organization. And they were just thrilled. And they endorsed our product launch. We would have launched probably in the June timeframe, but the whole COVID thing hit. Yes. So it really shut the country down in terms of travel and gatherings. So right now we're still on queue for Q4 to launch in Malaysia. Fantastic. And a member of the royal family, a prince, is a Harley Davidson rider. And if you ride a Harley in Malaysia, Harley has a big presence. So Harley, Honda, big presence, Ducati. These are all the big franchise dealers over there. And those are considered big bikes. And that's the market we're after. And he is so excited about inview. He offered, if he's the first person to get an inview, he's going to lead a procession of 50 motorcycles to Hard Rock Cafe in the southern part of Malaysia, right above Singapore, where we're doing our product launch. And then there's a big party, and industry influencers and bike clubs will be invited. Wonderful. And that's all planned for fourth quarter. You guys are going to be invited.
Woohoo! All right, we'll be there. That's fantastic.
But that was one of those. That was one of those. Kind of right place, right time. Yeah. That is just amazing.
It is.
So really exciting for us.
That's what's coming to me, and that's why these chills continue to stay here, because I figured it out. I figured it out, David. It's because this was meant to be, and because of the lives that are going to be saved by your invention, it's meant to be, and that's why everything collaborated, came together to form this, to make it happen, because it was meant to be. That's the way I see it. It was the third eye at play. The third eye, David.
That's right.
I hope so.
Yeah.
We tell people the company was founded on the belief that we can use technology to make the world a better, safer place, and we're starting one motorcycle at a time. Mm-hmm. And the folks that I've got here who work with me are amazing. We're all dedicated to it. And, if you love your job, you never work a day in your life.
It's so true.
Absolutely right.
It's hard work, but it's very rewarding. And I think we can make a difference.
I think you are going to make it.
I think you are making a difference already, definitely. For sure.
And so, there's along with all this good stuff, there's got to be some other things.
Right. So there's had to have been with any business, we know business startup because as we're entrepreneurs ourselves, there's adversity that you face. So we're curious about what mountains you've had to climb and overcome in the journey, because you said this isn't an overnight success. You've been working diligently for quite some time. So what type of adversity, or what can you share with us, has been some adversity, and then how did you overcome it?
Sure. Absolutely. There's been plenty of it, and I think you have to have you have to have an attitude that you're going to achieve something, you're going to make it happen, and I did. I was completely dedicated to this concept, and then you start to get people who back you from financially.
Right.
So an obligation gets set. I have a huge responsibility to my investors. One of the big hurdles that I've had is funding. It's expensive to do this. The engineering, and even though we've been pretty successful getting people to invest time and money, it's still expensive. So one of my biggest challenges remains fundraising.
There you go.
To support manufacturing, to support R&D, to support the office space, to support operations, to support. So that's been a challenge. Getting revenue to the point where it supports all that stuff. As you know, promoting a product is difficult, and social media, which is a big focus for us, is a pay for play game.
Yeah.
Kind of gone are the days where you can just kind of hope that somebody sees your post and broadcasts it, and the next thing you know, the sales start coming in, and that certainly happens.
Sure.
We did the trade show circuit in 2019. It was very successful for us. It was a way for us to get the word out there. That's really when we started selling. In 2020, there haven't been any trade shows. So we're focused on social media. We're growing our following. It's slow. Americade is the first event at the end of July that we'll be exhibiting at. So we're really looking forward to getting back up there and doing that. So fundraising has been a struggle.
Okay.
And then I think, making people aware of it. I knew that was going to be difficult, but it's harder than I thought it was going to be. We can go to the same trade show 2 years in a row, and people will say, wow, and it's the same person who's attended both years, will say, "What, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like this before. This is great. And I can't believe I ran into you." And, but they were there last year, and, they didn't walk by us. They didn't notice, they didn't whatever. And, we don't have a big advertising budget, so you're not going to see inview on billboards and stuff. We really count on word of mouth and, people using it.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to have you start riding with it.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. We're excited to have it. We ride with helmets, so it's a natural for us. So it just makes sense.
Absolutely. And safety is always part
of the reason, we ask that question is because a lot of times people, maybe they don't think about these things, when they see a company or somebody like yourself that's got an invention, and they don't think about the heart and soul that goes into it. And then the hurdles that you have to cross, the adversity, and many times that we have to go through, but that's why it's all well worth it. It's worth to go through the adversity to actually do what you're doing, to go out there. I mean, to me, David, your product is just it's huge, and I could see how you would take great pride in it, because we are talking about life here, and that's the way I see it. I see your product as saving lives, and that's all I got. We got to go through. Sometimes businesses. I think people need to know that businesses don't just happen. Right. Okay, there are people behind businesses, and people sacrifice their money, their time, all their effort, and there's many sacrifices that go in to making things happen. So that's why I like to, ask that question, because I think it's important people to understand. So let's leave that behind, because I never like to dwell on any negative. Okay. Let's talk about some new growth opportunities that's been going on with you, that you just shared with us recently. You've got some killer things going on. You want to share some of that?
Yeah, sure. So we were really excited. I mean, again, part of the challenge is making people aware of what we're doing. We were at the AIM Expo last year. It was a great show for us in Columbus, Ohio. And while we were there, the CEO of Twisted Throttle walked by our booth. He just, what a great guy. You know, I don't know if you've ever been to the Twisted Throttle website. It's a great website. And you kind of get a feel to what the company is like based on the communication of the website. And it's really dead on. They're just, it was such a pleasure meeting him. In any case, he loved inview, and he said, "I'd love to help you out." Now, inview is made in the U.S. That was a very conscious decision to support U.S. manufacturing and U.S. jobs. Mm-hmm. The prototype that we had built was made overseas, and it was a fine product. And it's what we did when we did our original pilot. Sure. But when we made it in the U.S., the cost went up a lot. Mm-hmm. So as a result, our margins are relatively small. It's been difficult to attract distribution as a result of that, because the distributor wants a margin. He wants to provide the retailer with a margin. You don't want the retail price point to be too high. And when you take all that out, it makes it tough. So we had a couple distributors who were really interested. And I met with their executive team, and they said, "Come back to us when your margins improve." So we're constantly working on, lowering our manufacturing costs, whatever. But it's tough, and it's pennies at a time. So Eric Stevens comes by the booth and says, "I love what you guys are doing, and I'd like to help, and let's talk." So I did, and he said, "We normally like greater margins. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you what. I'm gonna give my dealers margin that they need to have for this unit, and I'll sacrifice my margin. But do me a favor; it's a handshake deal. When you can lower your manufacturing costs, you'll help me out too." Right on. And what a great offer! And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So he took on North American distribution for us. We're currently licensed to sell in the U.S. and Canada. And he started selling. He started signing up dealers, and he signed up Revzilla, which you're probably familiar with. Yes. So they're one of the giant, direct-to-consumer dealers. So that was really good news for us. Mm-hmm. So Twisted Throttle's been selling for us. We're growing our dealer network, growing our install network. That's important. Mm-hmm. Gives people confidence to know that they have a dealer they can go to. Right. And then we've got affiliates who are selling for us. Right. And so we're growing that network, and that's exciting because these are people who talk about what inview is. Hopefully they'll use it. People will see it on the street. And I'm really anxious to hear about the comments you'll get as soon as you start riding with it. Yeah. I had a guy file me for about 5 miles once, and I pulled into a hotel at one point in Colorado, and he pulled in behind me, and he jumps off his bike, and he goes, "Where'd you get that?" And it was just such a cool experience, Yeah, we're prepared. We've got the cards you sent us, so thanks for doing
awesome.
that.
Yeah, we are prepared for that.
Stickers. We're going to plaster the western part of the U.S.
Yeah.
So we are ready to go from that. So in case, just want to reemphasize here that you're still looking for investors, distributors, dealers, and installers. Yes. So anybody in the audience, get in touch with Dave, and we'll make sure you get his information right after we're done here.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
So, if there is someone that's, listening or watching and has a vision, has a dream like you did about the inview, what would you say to them to encourage them to just make it happen, go for it?
And first off, make sure it's real. Make sure it's real, because I have had people who've come to me and said, "I've got this great idea," mm-hmm. and I often understand why they feel it's a great idea, but it's not in its implementation. Mm-hmm. So talk to a lot of people. Talk to as many people as you can, and once you're really convinced that you've got a really unique, great idea, then don't give up. I spent a lot of, I've only been doing this full time for 2 years. Prior to that, it was still a full-time job, but I had another full-time job that paid me. Yes. Mm-hmm. So, these are, and I kid you not, for years and years, 70, 80-hour weeks. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's brutal and it's slow because you end up working your dream job at night when everybody else is not working. So you send out emails and you do stuff, and then you get a response, but you're you're at your paying job and you don't mix the two. So you get home at night and you read their email and you're like, oh, wish I had seen that earlier. And you know what I mean? It's difficult. And I still work a ton of hours, but now it's doing one thing. But I tell people all the time too. I mean, if I make millions of dollars doing this and I divide it by the number of hours I've got invested in it, I'm hoping it'll be minimum wage. So do it all for the right reasons too.
Exactly.
I mean, I do believe in giving back, and that's a cool part about being the CEO of a company. And I was mentioning earlier, we hired ArcWorks, this amazing contract manufacturer that does all our packaging and fulfillment. It's big, 82,000 square feet, one of the largest of its type in the U.S., supported 70% by a disabled workforce.
That's phenomenal.
I love touring the facility. I mean, it's just amazing to go there. They have one of the lowest employee absenteeism rates in the country for a contract manufacturer, because these are folks who feel rewarded, valued. They love going to work.
Isn't that something?
And so it's really fun. So they're doing, if you order an inview, you're going to get it shipped to you from ArcWorks. And so that's really cool.
That's great. Now, I think you mentioned you're going to be doing a ride with them. Is that correct?
Yeah, this fall, hopefully. So ArcWorks, Arc of Monroe is the kind of parent organization that helps to manage disabled workers, bring people back into the workforce. So the whole purpose of what they do is to mainstream disabled people.
Okay.
And they have another component that's food service. So next to ArcWorks is a food service place, and they serve the area where there's a bunch of businesses. So what they do is they take, again, high proportion of disabled people and train them how to work in the food service industry. So it's a place you can go and you can get lunch, you can get breakfast. So they're very interested in showcasing what they do. So we're going to invite a bunch of riders in. It'll be a benefit. We're going to have a bunch of prizes we'll give away. And it'll start out with a breakfast served by ArcWorks, a tour of the ArcWorks facility. And then I think we're going to take a ride to one of our many parks. And if the social gathering stuff is okay, they'll probably cater a barbecue. And hopefully we'll have some entertainment, and people will get to pay a minimal fee for a ride that gives them a chance to earn a prize, and the money will be donated to support ArcWorks.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We've got a lot.
That sounds like a great time, boy. I want to be there.
Going on. There's a lot of giving over there, Dave. A lot of giving, a lot of great things going on in your world.
Absolutely.
So there's one thing, we're getting to where we got to wrap it up here, David. Sure. There's a question that I want to start asking our guest. And actually, we've asked it before. Deb, you want to ask it?
Sure.
Okay.
So what advice would you give someone that's either thinking or wanting to become a rider in the motorcycle world? What advice would you give them?
Get trained. So I grew up riding motocross. I knew how to ride a motorcycle. When I decided to get my motorcycle license, I went and took an MSF course. And I thought it started with it's an easy way to get your license, right? And I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to learn that much, and a lot of the people we were with, they start out with, learning how to put your bike on the kickstand, learning how to get on it, right? Basic stuff. So, I've been doing all that, and I thought, I don't know if it's going to teach me that much, but it'll be fun. I'll be on a different bike, and you know what? I learned something. I absolutely learned something. So whether your interest is learning how to ride on the road, whether your interest is adventure riding, whether your interest is taking your road skills to the next level, I really believe it's worth training. And then join a group. And I join, I'm a member of a couple of them, and it's a lot of fun. There's somebody in the group who's more experienced than you are who can help you grow. That's how you grow, whether it's in skills or just knowledge on how to maintain or work on your bike. You get to see a bunch of different bikes. You'll fine tune what it is that you like. So get trained, join a group, and just have a blast.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Great advice, by the way.
That's right.
And before we wrap up, is there anything that maybe we need to cover about the inview before we wrap things up, David, that you can think of?
No, we're and I appreciate all the time. We're very different. There are a couple of companies out there now who are selling an accelerometer only based brake light. The DOT actually did a study a couple of years ago on accessory motorcycle lighting, and they had an area of focus on brake lighting. So the DOT did a study on these accelerometer only based lights. So these are lights that don't integrate with your motorcycle. They go off because they sense deceleration. And the DOT study concluded by saying, be really cautious using these lights. When they interviewed motorists who were following motorcycles with these lights, the motorists reported, I didn't get it. And what the DOT found is that cars don't follow motorcycles that long in traffic. Motorcycles turn. Motorcycles tend to weave in and out more. So the cars don't develop a relationship with what the car drivers called a randomly flashing light and a brake light. And the DOT concluded by saying motorists tend to ignore what they don't understand. But an accelerometer-based light is a great idea. So we worked with the DOT and we said, so how do you fix it? And they said, you have to have a physical brake light. So inview comes with a physical brake light. We have a unit that installs on the motorcycle and it integrates into your turn signals and braking system. So inview does what turning signaling hazards if your bike has them.
That's great.
But we also have an accelerometer in it, and the accelerometer senses motorcycle position. If you're slowing down by engine braking, and you can slow down aggressively, it's important to let a car behind you know that you're slowing down, even though you're not physically braking. Right. With inview, not only will the helmet light go off, but a very bright waterproof accessory brake light will go off that you install by your tail light. Okay. And I guarantee you, the first thing a motorist is going to see is inview. It's in that upper third portion of your vision, high and center, where it should be. It's the most attention-getting place. Yes. The next thing a motorist is going to do, because they probably haven't seen one before, is look down. And they're going to see a brake light go off. And they're going to develop a relationship. Oh, that's a brake light right away.
Wow, very good.
So key distinction. inview doesn't have a switch. Another key distinction between some of the other units that are out there, you don't have to remember to turn it on or off. Forget to turn it on, it won't work. It won't protect you. Forget to turn it off, batteries will be dead the next time you go use it.
Right.
So those are a couple of key things. And then the other place is, if somebody wants to buy one, go to your website, or go to our website and make sure you use the promo code BikerLife.
Yes,
because it'll get you $25 off.
$25.
Absolutely right.
And that's a big deal. So so that's important to let people know, to do that.
I appreciate that. Deb's going to go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll give you the last word.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. So we are so glad to know you, first of all, and then we're so appreciative and grateful that you have joined us today to share with the world all the good stuff that Third Eye Design and inview are doing. But before we put our kickstands down and turn the ignitions off, we want to give you the last word of how everyone can reach out to one if they want to be an investor, dealer, distributor. We want you to open that back up and let everyone know how to reach out to you. And then we'll just wrap it up, if you would, just on how they can find the device.
Sure, absolutely. If somebody wants to get a hold of me, email is always great. David.Werner at thirdeyedesigninc.com. Go to the website, do a search for inview. You'll find our website. So that's really, really important. And I love talking to customers. My phone number is out there. My email is out there. I love getting calls from people. It was really interesting. Somebody had sent a message into customer support, and I called him up. He was having trouble getting inview running, and it's really pretty easy to get running. So sure enough, he had just misread the instructions. He had crossed a wire, and in probably 5 minutes or less, I had him running. And he says to me, yeah, well, I'm really, thank you so much. I'm really anxious to get this. I'm going to go riding. Well, when somebody says that to me, and I look outside, and at the time it's 45 degrees out. I always wonder where they are, right? So it's kind of a clue. So we have customers from all over the country, and I expected him to say Texas or Florida or California. He goes, well, I'm in a little town in upstate New York. And I thought, well, so are we. And I said, well, that's interesting. Where? He goes, well, I'm in a little town outside of Rochester. I said, what town? He says, Brighton. Brighton is right next to Pittsford, where I am. So he says Brighton, and I just had a laugh. And I said, we're in Pittsford. Right. And he laughs, and he goes, I want to come see you. So he eventually does. And so I love talking to people. They're That's great wonderful. Connections. Great and I would say, life is an amazing journey, and kind of no regrets. And, but if you've been thinking about motorcycling or you've been thinking about riding, it is a wonderful way to experience travel, to experience the country, and don't wait. I can pretty much guarantee you for the people who go out there and do it, they're going to say, I wish I'd have done this earlier.
That's right.
It really is a great way to meet people and travel. And, it's been a great experience for me.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful, David. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you.
Yeah,
we look
had
forward
a great
to
time. Learned so many new things, but also
great stories. You're a great storyteller. Like I said, you're a natural sitting up there. I'm telling you, you're wonderful. Well, we appreciate you very so much. We look forward. We'll do it again sometime. How's that sound?
Awesome.
We'll get caught up. Find out what's been going on.
Maybe we'll do it face to face.
Whatever. So
sounds great. That'd be wonderful.
Really appreciate you, David.
Tell everyone we said hello up there.
I will.
And then until then, ride safe, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Be safe.
Bye-bye.
Be seen.
Thank you.
Deb, I don't know about you, but that was a fantastic interview with David.
It was a great time.
I just loved it, man.
Yeah.
This guy's got some stories. And when I talked about on there that this is meant to be, I believe it. I'm still getting chills. I mean, for everything to fall into place the way it was and people to appear in his life, it's got to be something that's meant to be because it's saving lives.
I totally
Be safe,
agree.
Be seen, right?
That's right. And I, truly believe that when you're in the place that you're meant to be, that's what happens is the doors open. And as you mentioned, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And that happens in life. And it's happened to us as we started this journey ourselves.
That's how we met David.
And so that's
the coolest
absolutely thing. We keep meeting neat people all over the country, quite honestly, because there's this magnetism, there's this attraction, there is this need to be together and be part of a bigger community. And it's all about the biker community. So I love that.
We're so grateful to David. I'm telling you, you guys think I'm playing around here. Deb, can you show them and tell them I'm still got chills going on here? They're good chills, right?
Right. And I can't wait to get on an adventure bike and hit those back roads and get into that trail. Oh my gosh.
We're going to take you with us though when we do it. All right.
True.
You're going to go with us. So stay tuned. We wanted you to know that for one, we really appreciate you being part of this show. It really means a lot to Deb and I. And we're so truly grateful when we say that. We really mean it. We're truly grateful and thankful that you're with us. And we're really looking forward to some really great things taking place in the future. Next month is going to be quite interesting. We haven't revealed it yet, but it's going to be exciting. So stay tuned so that you can follow what's going on and be with us. We want you to be with us, actually.
Part of the journey, that's for sure. So
Deb, go ahead and let them know how to find us. And if this is the first time they're listening, where they can find us, you can go out to the chuckndebshow.com. That's one way.
Right. Absolutely. Follow us on Facebook on Biker Life Radio or the Chuck-n-Deb Show page. And be sure to join our group. So we've got lots of bikers around the country that are joining and becoming part of this bigger community and network. So we want to make sure that you are part of our journey and experiencing that too. So we want to also just enjoy and have you on board with us in our biker lifestyle.
And also on YouTube, it's Chuck-n-Deb. You'll be able to find us that way if you look us up on YouTube. And if you're interested in the inview, which you really need to be after this interview, it's definitely something that's meant to be. It's something that can save your life. Be seen, be safe. Go out to Chuck-n-Deb Show /inview. All right. Again, we appreciate you all very much and can't wait to come to you next week. Take care, everybody.
See you again soon.